The war room of the Galactic Coalition was silent. 20 alien leaders sat around a massive table made of black stone. Their faces showed the same thing: defeat. High Magistrate stood at the head of the table. His gray skin was tight with stress. His 4 eyes looked at the holographic map floating above the table. It showed a small moon called Seven. Such a tiny place, such a big problem. 3 years, said. His voice was tired. We have tried for 3 years to find the Syndicate terrorists hiding on that moon. We have failed every single time. The other leaders said nothing. They knew the numbers: 12 diplomatic missions, 8 military operations, 200 soldiers dead. And still the terrorists hid among the native people in their villages. The villagers protected them. They lied for them. They kept their secrets. The shock troops were our best option, said Admiral Vex, a tall insect-like creature. If they could not break the villages, nothing can. Remembered the operation. The massive warriors had marched into the villages with weapons that could destroy buildings. They had shouted. They had threatened. They had broken doors and searched homes. The people had watched with empty eyes and said nothing. The terrorists had escaped through tunnels that seemed to appear from nowhere. There is one option we have not tried, said a quiet voice. Everyone turned. At the far end of the table sat the human ambassador. Her name was Sarah. She was small compared to the other aliens in the room. Her skin was soft brown. Her eyes were dark and calm. The other leaders often forgot she was there. Humans were new to the galaxy. They were not important yet. The humans? Admiral Vex made a sound like laughing. Your species joined the coalition only 5 years ago. What could you possibly offer? Sarah did not react to the insult. Her face stayed calm. We offer our special forces. The room was quiet again. Some leaders looked confused. They did not know this term. Special forces, repeated. Explain. They are soldiers, Sarah said. But not like your soldiers. They do not fight with large armies. They do not use heavy weapons. They are small teams, 12 people, sometimes less. They go where others cannot go. They see what others cannot see. They solve problems that armies cannot solve. Admiral Vex leaned forward. His wings buzzed with doubt. 12 soldiers against an enemy that defeated 200 warriors. This is a joke. It is not a joke, Sarah said. Her voice was still quiet, but something in it made the Admiral stop talking. They failed because they were loud, they were obvious. The villagers saw them coming from miles away. They had time to hide everything. She paused. Our special forces are not loud, they are not obvious. Most of the time you do not know they are there until their work is done. Studied the human woman. His species had lived for thousands of years. They had seen many warriors from many worlds, but something about the way this human spoke made him curious. What would these soldiers do differently? He asked. Sarah stood up. She walked to the holographic map. Her small hand pointed at one of the villages. Your soldiers went to this village and demanded answers. They broke things. They scared people. The villagers closed their mouths and kept their secrets. She looked at the alien leaders. Our soldiers will not demand anything. They will not break anything. They will watch. They will listen. They will learn. And when they understand the village and its people, they will find what you are looking for. Watch and listen. Admiral Vex sounded angry now. We do not have time for watching and listening. The Syndicate terrorists are planning more attacks. People are dying. People are dying because your methods do not work, Sarah said. There was no anger in her voice, just truth. You have tried force. You have tried fear. Let us try something else. The room was silent for a long moment. Looked at the other leaders. He saw doubt on their faces. He also saw something else. He saw desperation. They had no other ideas. Very well, said. Send your special forces, but I want to see them before they go. 3 days later, stood on a landing platform as a human ship came down from the sky. It was a small ship, painted in colors that made it hard to see against the clouds. It landed without a sound. The magistrate had never seen a ship land so quietly. The door opened. 12 humans walked out. Studied them carefully. They were not impressive to look at. They were smaller than warriors. They had no scales or claws or extra arms. They wore simple uniforms in dark colors. They carried weapons that looked old and primitive, metal tubes that fired small pieces of metal using chemical explosions. How ancient, how weak. But then looked at their eyes. The eyes were different. They moved constantly, looking at everything. The landing platform, the guards, the buildings, the sky. These eyes were not just seeing. They were recording, measuring, understanding. In 5 seconds, felt that these 12 humans knew more about this platform than his own guards who worked here every day. One human stepped forward, a woman with dark skin and short gray hair. Her face had small scars. Her eyes were the eyes I'd ever seen. "Sergeant Major Vance," she said, "my team is ready." "You understand the mission?" asked. "The village hides a syndicate terrorist, who killed 4,000 civilians. We need him captured or dead." "We understand," Vance said. "What is your plan?" Vance almost smiled. Almost. "With respect, Magistrate, I will not tell you our plan. The fewer people who know, the better." Felt a flash of anger. No soldier had ever refused to answer his questions, but before he could speak, Vance continued. "We will be in contact when the mission is complete, not before." She turned and walked back to her team. They exchanged no words. They made signals with their hands. Then, as watched, the 12 humans walked toward the jungle at the edge of the platform. Within seconds they were gone, not just hidden. Gone as if the jungle had swallowed them whole. Guards looked confused. They activated heat sensors, motion detectors. Nothing. The humans had vanished. Stood there for a long moment. His 4 eyes searched the tree line. He saw only leaves and shadows. "What manner of soldiers are these?" he whispered to himself. The jungle did not answer. But somewhere in its depths, 12 humans were already moving, already watching, already beginning to learn the secrets that a village thought it could hide. The hunt had begun, and for the first time in 3 years, the hunters were something the galaxy had never seen before. The village had kept secrets for 3 years. The people who lived there knew how to hide things. It was part of their nature. Their blue skin could glow with light, making patterns that only other could understand. When coalition soldiers came with their scanners and questions, they smiled and glowed false messages to each other. The soldiers never knew they were being fooled. Elder was proud of her people. She was old, her skin faded to pale blue, but her mind was sharp. She had protected her village from the coalition many times. When the terrorist came to them, wounded and desperate, she had made a choice. She did not love the syndicate. She did not support their violence. But she hated the coalition more. They had taken land. They had killed people in their wars. So she hid the terrorist in the grain cellar beneath the village center, and she told her people to keep silent. For 3 years, the secret had been safe. Soldiers came and went. They searched and found nothing. They shouted and threatened, but they just watched with empty eyes until the soldiers gave up and left. But now, something was different. It started on the first night after the human ship was seen in the sky. A child named came running to her mother with fear in her eyes. Her skin was flashing with alarm colors. "I saw something in the trees," said. "A shadow, it was watching me." Her mother looked at the trees. She saw nothing. "It was just an animal," she said. "Go back to sleep." But was not the only one. The next morning, hunters went into the jungle to check their traps. They found something strange. The traps were not triggered. They were not broken. They were taken apart, carefully, gently. Every piece was laid on the ground in perfect order, as if someone wanted to study how the trap worked. "What animal does this?" one hunter asked. No one had an answer. On the second night, old Merk was walking home from the river. He stopped suddenly. He felt eyes on him. He turned and looked at the jungle. For just a moment he saw something, a shape. It looked like a person, but it was covered in leaves and mud. It was so still that it seemed like part of the forest. Then Merk blinked and the shape was gone. He ran home and told no one. He thought maybe his old eyes were playing tricks. By the fourth night, the whole village was nervous. People saw shadows that moved against the wind. They heard sounds that might be footsteps or might be nothing. Children refused to play near the tree line. Even the adults walked faster when they passed the jungle's edge. Elder called a meeting. The villagers gathered in the central square, their skin glowing with worried colors. "What is happening?" a young mother asked. "Are there ghosts in the forest?" "There are no ghosts," said, but her voice was not certain. "The coalition sent new soldiers," said a strong young man who worked as a guard. "Human soldiers. I heard they landed 5 days ago." "Humans?" Another villager made a sound of confusion. "Humans are weak. They have no claws, no armor, no special powers. What can humans do that warriors could not?" Thought about this. She had never met a human. She knew very little about them. But something about the past few days made her feel strange. The soldiers had been loud and obvious. You could hear them coming from far away. You had time to prepare, to hide things, to make plans. These shadows in the jungle were different. They made no sound, they left almost no trace, and they were patient, so very patient. They had searched for 2 days and then left in anger. These shadows had been watching for 5 days and they showed no sign of leaving. "Increase the guards," ordered. "No one goes into the jungle alone, and no one," she let her skin glow bright with warning, "speaks of our guest in the cellar, not even in the light tongue. Do you understand?" The villagers nodded. They flashed agreement patterns with their skin, but saw the fear in their eyes. They were used to keeping secrets from clumsy soldiers who did not understand them. They were not used to keeping secrets from shadows that seemed to see everything. That night went to the grain cellar. She climbed down the hidden ladder and found the terrorist in his hiding place. His name was, he was a horrible creature, 8 limbs covered in poisonous spines, eyes that held no mercy. He had killed thousands of innocent people, did not like him, but she had made a promise to hide him and they kept their promises. "There are new soldiers," she told him. "Humans, they are watching the village." Made a hissing laugh. "Humans, those soft, weak creatures, they are nothing. I have killed humans before, they die easily." "These humans are different," said. "They have been watching for 5 days. We cannot see them. We cannot find them. They are like ghosts." Many eyes blinked. For the first time saw something in those eyes, not fear, not yet, but attention, interest. "Tell me everything," said. Told him about the shadows, the traps, the sounds in the night. As she spoke, she watched his face. The terrorist was not laughing anymore. "Special forces," said quietly when she finished. "I have heard of them, stories from other worlds. They say these humans are trained from young age to become invisible, to watch, to wait, to learn their enemy completely before they strike." "What do we do?" asked. "We do nothing," said, but his voice was tense. "We wait, we stay hidden, they cannot watch forever. Eventually they will give up like the others." Nodded and climbed back up the ladder. But as she walked through the village under the pale moons of 7, she could not shake a terrible feeling. Somewhere in the darkness, eyes were watching her. Patient eyes, clever eyes, eyes that were learning her village's every secret one night at a time. She looked at the jungle, she saw nothing but shadows. And that, she realized, was exactly what frightened her most. There had been monsters she could see. These humans were monsters she could not see. And deep in her heart, she knew something that she would not admit to anyone. The village could not keep this secret much longer. The ghosts in the undergrowth would find the truth. It was only a matter of time. Above the village, hidden in a tree that gave perfect view of the central square, Sergeant Major Vance watched Elder walk home. Through her night vision scope, she saw the old woman's skin flicker with worried patterns. Vance smiled slightly and made a signal with her hand. Across the village, her team members responded with their own signals. They had been watching for 5 days. They had learned much, but they were patient. They would learn more. The village thought it could keep secrets. The village was wrong. Corporal David was not a fighter. He was a linguist. His job was to understand languages, how people spoke, what their words meant, and most importantly, what they said when they thought no one was listening. For 9 days, he had been watching them from his hidden position in the jungle. He had a special camera that recorded every flash and glow of their skin. At night, he studied the recordings in his small tent, looking for patterns. The coalition had tried to understand the light language before. They had failed. Their scientists said it was too complex, too different from normal speech. There were no words, only colors and patterns. How could anyone learn such a thing? But was not a coalition scientist. He was a human, and humans had learned many strange languages before. On the 3rd day, he noticed something. When they were happy, their skin glowed with warm colors, yellow, orange, soft red. When they were scared, the colors became cold, blue, purple, sharp white. This was basic. Anyone could see this, but look deeper. On the 5th day, he found the patterns. They did not just show colors, they showed shapes. A circle of light meant one thing, a line meant another. The speed of the glow mattered too. A slow pulse was different from a fast flash. By the 7th day, had recorded 347 different patterns. He did not know what all of them meant yet, but he was learning fast. "Look at this," he told Sergeant Major Vance on the 8th night. They were sitting in a hidden camp deep in the jungle, far from the village. The other team members were sleeping or keeping watch. Showed Vance his computer screen. "This pattern," he pointed to a recording, "happens every time someone lies. See how the light moves from left to right. And this pattern," he pointed to another, "means shame. The elder's daughter shows it every night after she visits the grain cellar. Vance studied the screen. Her face showed no emotion, but her eyes were intense. You can tell who is lying. Yes, and I can tell who is scared, who is hiding something, who knows about the terrorist, smiled slightly. They think their light language is a secret code. They think no outsider can read it. They have been using it freely in front of us, saying things they would never say out loud. What have they said? The terrorist is in the grain cellar under the village center. His name is, the elder knows. Her daughter brings him food every night. Most of the villagers also know, but they are scared to talk. They hate the coalition, but they also hate the terrorist. They keep him hidden because they fear what the coalition will do to their village if the truth comes out. Vance nodded slowly. This was important information, but it was not enough. If the team simply attacked the cellar, the terrorist might escape through hidden tunnels, or villagers might get hurt in the fight. The mission was to capture without causing harm to innocent people. We need more, Vance said. We need to know the tunnels. We need to know the cellar's layout. We need the villagers to stop protecting him. There might be a way, said. He looked nervous. I have been practicing the light patterns. I can make simple messages using this. He held up a small device that could project colored light. I am not perfect, but I can say basic things, enough to communicate. Vance was quiet for a long moment. The other team members had tried many approaches over the years. They had used force. They had used spies. They had used technology, but no one had ever tried this. No one had ever learned to speak the enemy's secret language and used it to talk to them directly. What would you say? She asked. The truth, replied. That we are not here to hurt the village, that we only want, that we know they are hiding him because they are scared, not because they support him. Vance thought about this. It was a risk. If she walked into the village, she would be surrounded by people who might attack her. She would be alone and exposed. One wrong move and she would be dead. But Vance had been a soldier for 20 years. She had learned one important lesson in that time. Sometimes the bravest thing you could do was put down your weapon and talk. Teach me the patterns, she said. For 2 days trained Vance. He taught her the basic patterns for simple words. We know. We want him. Not you. Safe. Trust. She practiced for hours, making the light device flash in the right colors and shapes. She was not perfect. Her accent was terrible, but she could make herself understood. On the 10th night, Vance walked out of the jungle alone. The village guards saw her coming. They raised their weapons and shouted warnings. Villagers ran from their homes to see what was happening. Elder pushed through the crowd, her skin flashing with alarm. Vance stopped in the center of the village square. She raised her hands to show she had no weapon. Then she activated the light device on her chest. Her suit began to glow. They went silent. Every single one of them stopped moving, stopped talking, stopped breathing. They stared at the human woman whose suit was flickering with colored light. Vance's light patterns were slow and clumsy. Her colors were not quite right, but the message was clear. We know, we have watched, we have listened, we understand your secret. Elder's skin went completely dark. This had never happened before. No outsider had ever spoken the light tongue. No outsider had ever even tried to learn it. Vance continued her message. We are not here for your village. We are not here to hurt your people. We want only him, the one in the cellar, the one who killed thousands of innocent people. The villagers exchanged looks. Their skins flickered with confusion, fear, and something else. Something that looked almost like hope. Give us him, only him. Then we will leave, your village will be safe, your secrets will stay secret, you have our word. Stepped forward, her skin began to glow again, forming patterns of response. How do we know you speak truth? The coalition has lied before. Vance understood the pattern, had trained her well. We are not coalition, she replied with her lights. We are human, we do not lie, we do not destroy villages, we solve problems quietly, carefully. No one has to die tonight except the one who deserves death. Stared at the human woman for a long moment. In all her years, she had never met anyone like this. The coalition soldiers had been arrogant and cruel. The warriors had been violent and stupid. But this human had taken the time to learn, to understand, to speak to thee as equals. His eyes moved, just once, a tiny glance toward the grain cellar. Vance saw it, she nodded. Thank you, she said with her lights. Then she turned and walked back into the jungle. The village stood in shocked silence. They had just witnessed something impossible. An outsider who spoke their language, an outsider who asked instead of demanded, an outsider who treated them with respect. Elder looked at the grain seller. For the first time in 3 years, she felt the weight of her secret lifting from her shoulders. The terrorist had brought nothing but fear and shame to her village. Maybe it was time to let him go. Maybe it was time to trust these strange, patient, impossible humans. Had killed his first victim when he was young. It was easy. A quick strike with his poisoned spine and the creature fell dead in seconds. Over the years, he killed many more, hundreds, then thousands. He worked for the syndicate because they paid well and let him do what he loved. Death was his art. Violence was his joy. He was not afraid of soldiers. He had fought warriors and won. He had escaped coalition prisons twice. His 8 limbs were fast, his poison was deadly, and his mind was sharp. No army had ever caught him. No hunter had ever surprised him. But tonight something felt wrong. He sat in the grain cellar, surrounded by bags of food and barrels of water. The elder's daughter had brought him dinner earlier, some kind of meat and vegetables. She had looked scared, more scared than usual. Her skin had flickered with strange patterns before she ran back up the ladder. Did not know the light language well, but he recognized fear when he saw it. The human woman had come to the village. The elder had told him about it. A human who could speak with lights. A human who knew about the cellar, had laughed at first. One small human female, he could kill her with one limb tied behind his back. But then he thought about it more carefully. The humans had been watching for 10 days. 10 days and no one had seen them clearly. 10 days and they had learned the secret language. 10 days of patience and silence and perfect hiding. These were not normal soldiers. These were predators. Checked his weapons. He had a plasma pistol and 3 knives. His poisoned spines were full of venom. If anyone came down that ladder, he would kill them before they reached the ground. The night grew quiet, too quiet. Usually could hear the village above him, footsteps, voices, the sounds of daily life. Tonight there was nothing, just silence. He felt a cold feeling in his chest. Something was wrong. Then the lights went out. The cellar had small electric lamps that gave a dim glow. Suddenly they all died at once. The darkness was complete, could see nothing. He raised his plasma pistol and pointed it at the ladder. His 8 eyes adjusted slowly to the dark. His ears listened for any sound. His poisoned spine stood ready. Nothing, no sound, no movement, just darkness and silence. Then he felt air move behind him. He spun around, firing his plasma pistol. The green energy bolt lit up the cellar for a moment. In that moment, saw something that made his blood freeze. 4 humans, they had not come down the ladder, they had come through the wall. There was a hole where solid stone had been. They had cut through the wall itself, silently, perfectly. The plasma bolt missed. Before could fire again, something hit his arm. His pistol flew away into the darkness. He tried to slash with his poisoned spines, but hands grabbed his limbs with impossible speed. Something wrapped around his neck. Something else locked his arms together. He tried to scream. A piece of cloth covered his mouth. 12 seconds, that was how long it took, had killed hundreds of people in his life. He had tortured some for hours. He was a monster who had made the galaxy fear his name. And 4 humans had captured him in 12 seconds. They dragged him through the hole in the wall. There was a tunnel on the other side, a tunnel that had never known existed. His own escape tunnels were on the other side of the cellar. These humans had found a different route. They had dug their own path. Struggled, but the restraints were tight. He tried to activate his poisoned spines, but they had been covered with some kind of thick paste that blocked the venom. These humans knew exactly what he was capable of, and they had prepared for everything. The tunnel led to the jungle outside the village. More humans waited there. A vehicle with no lights sat hidden among the trees. They threw inside and locked a metal cage around him. Sergeant Major Vance climbed into the vehicle. She looked at through the cage bars. Her eyes were calm and cold. "Of the syndicate," she said. "You are under arrest for the murder of 4,000 civilians on transport ship Mercy. You will be taken to coalition headquarters for trial." Hissed through his cloth gag. His eyes burned with hatred. He had been caught by soft, weak, primitive humans. It was impossible. It was humiliating. Vance did not smile. She simply turned away and gave orders to her team. Within minutes, the vehicle was moving through the jungle, away from the village. Back in, they were waking up. The first light of dawn was touching the sky. Elder came to the village square and found something strange. The door to the grain cellar was still closed. The guards were still at their posts. Nothing seemed disturbed. But when climbed down the ladder, she found the cellar empty. There was a hole in the wall that had not been there before. Clean edges, perfect cut. No rubble, no mess. The terrorist was gone and no one had heard a thing. Next to where it slept, there was a package. Opened it with shaking hands. Inside, she found medical supplies for the village children, seeds that could grow in Seven's difficult soil, clean water filters, things the village needed badly, things the coalition had never offered. There was also a note. It was written on paper, but next to the words, someone had drawn the light patterns that matched each sentence. Whoever wrote this had taken time to translate it into. The note said, "Your secret was never the syndicate. Your secret was your fear. You were afraid of what the coalition would do if they found out. You were afraid no one would understand. We understand. You are free of both secrets now. The terrorist is gone. Your village is safe. Use these gifts to build a better future for your children. The humans remember those who helped them. If you ever need us, send a light message to the sky. We will see it." Read the note 3 times. Her skin began to glow with colors she had not shown in years. Hope, relief, gratitude. She climbed out of the cellar and showed the note to her people. The villagers gathered around, reading the words, looking at the gifts. Some of them cried. Some of them laughed. Some just stood in silence, trying to understand what had happened. For 3 years, they had lived with a monster in their cellar. They had been afraid of the coalition, afraid of the terrorist, afraid of everything. They had kept their secrets because they did not know what else to do. And then 12 humans had come, 12 quiet, patient humans who watched and learned and understood. They had taken the monster away without hurting a single villager. They had left gifts instead of destruction. They had spoken in the light tongue instead of shouting demands. "Who are these humans?" a young child asked. "Are they soldiers?" Looked at the note in her hands. She thought about the woman who had walked into the village alone, speaking with lights, asking instead of demanding. "I do not know what they are," said softly, "but I hope we see them again someday." In the jungle, hidden among the trees, Corporal watched the village through his scope. He saw the reading the note. He saw their skins glowing with happy colors. He smiled and made a hand signal to his partner. Mission complete. 0 casualties. The target was captured. The village was safe. This was what special forces did. Not destruction, not fear, just quiet work in the shadows, solving problems that armies could not solve. Packed his equipment and disappeared into the jungle. Within an hour, there was no trace that any human had ever been there. The village had returned to its normal life, but nothing would ever be quite the same. The humans had come and gone like ghosts, and in their wake, they had left something the village had not felt in a long time. Peace. High Magistrate sat in his office, reading the mission report for the 3rd time. The words were simple, but he could not quite believe them. Mission duration, 11 days. Personnel deployed, 12. Weapons fired, 0. Buildings damaged, 0. Civilian casualties, 0. Target status, captured alive. Put down the report and looked at the woman sitting across from him. Sergeant Major Vance looked the same as she had 11 days ago, calm, quiet, her eyes seeing everything while revealing nothing. "Explain this to me," said. "I have read the report 5 times and I still do not understand. How did you capture one of the most dangerous terrorists in the galaxy without firing a single shot?" Vance leaned back in her chair. "We watched, we listened, we learned." "That is not an explanation." "It is the only explanation that matters, Magistrate." Vance paused. "Your soldiers failed because they treated the village as an enemy. They went in with weapons and threats. The villagers closed their mouths and kept their secrets. That is what people do when they are scared." "So what did you do differently?" "We treated them as people. We learned their language. We understood their fears. When we finally made contact, we did not demand anything. We asked. We offered them a choice." Vance looked directly at. "They chose to help us because we gave them a reason to trust us." Was quiet for a long moment. His species had waged war for 10,000 years. They had conquered hundreds of worlds. They had developed weapons that could destroy planets, but in all that time they had never thought to simply ask. The terrorist said, "He is a monster. He has killed thousands. How did you capture him without anyone getting hurt?" "Patience," Vance said. We watched him for 10 days, we learned his habits, we found his weaknesses. We mapped the cellar and discovered a route he did not know about. When we finally moved, we knew exactly what he would do and how to stop him. 12 seconds. The report says you captured him in 12 seconds. Yes. That is remarkable. Vance almost smiled. We practice a lot. Stood up and walked to his window. Outside, the great city of the Coalition spread out below him. Millions of beings from hundreds of species lived and worked in those buildings. They had all heard stories about human special forces now. The news had spread quickly. "There is something I do not understand," said without turning around. "You could have captured on the first day. Your report says you knew where he was hiding by the 5th day. Why did you wait so long?" "Because the mission was not just about." "Turn to look at her. Explain." Vance stood up and walked to the window beside him. "The village of has been hiding syndicate terrorists for 3 years. If we had simply taken and left, another terrorist would have come to take his place within a month. The village would keep hiding enemies because they hate the Coalition and fear its punishment. So we did not just capture a terrorist. We changed how the village sees the galaxy. We showed them that not all outsiders are cruel and violent. We left them gifts. We spoke their language. We treated them with respect." Vance looked at. "The village of will not hide terrorists anymore, not because they are afraid of us, but because they trust us. That is more valuable than one dead." Stared at the human woman. In all his centuries of life, he had never heard a soldier talk like this. Soldiers fought. Soldiers killed. Soldiers did not worry about trust and respect and relationships. But maybe that was why the Coalition kept failing. "I have a question for you, Magistrate," Vance said. "Do you know why the village was hiding in the first place?" "Because they support the Syndicate." "No," Vance shook her head. "They hate the Syndicate, was a monster, and they knew it. They hid him because they hate the Coalition more. They hid him because Coalition soldiers destroyed their farms 10 years ago. They hid him because Coalition law took their children to work in mines. They hid him because every time the Coalition comes to their world, something bad happens." Felt a cold feeling in his chest. He had not known this. He had never asked. "You want to stop terrorism?" Vance said. "Stop creating terrorists. Give these people a reason to support you instead of fighting you. Build schools instead of prisons. Send doctors instead of soldiers. The Syndicate finds followers among people who feel abandoned and angry. If you take away their anger, you take away the Syndicate's power." She walked back to her chair and picked up her bag. "My team's work is done. We'll face trial. The village is at peace. But the real work is just beginning, and that is not a job for soldiers. That is a job for diplomats and builders and healers." Vance turned to leave. At the door, she stopped and looked back. "One more thing, Magistrate. My report includes a list of recommendations, aid packages, medical support, educational programs. I suggest you read it carefully. The village trusted us because we showed them kindness. If the Coalition wants that trust to last, you need to show them kindness too." Then she was gone. Stood alone in his office for a long time. He thought about everything she had said. He thought about 10,000 years of warfare. He thought about all the weapons his people had built, all the enemies they had crushed, all the victories they had won. And he thought about 12 humans who had done what armies could not do, without firing a single shot. The next day, he called a meeting of the Coalition High Council. He presented Vance's recommendations. There was argument, of course. Some leaders did not want to spend money on alien villages. Some leaders thought kindness was weakness. But in the end, the recommendations were approved. Aid ships were sent to 7. Doctors arrived to help the sick. Teachers came to open schools. The Coalition, for the first time in its history, tried a different approach. And it worked. Within a year, terrorist activity on 7 dropped by 80%. Villages that had once hidden Syndicate agents now reported them to Coalition forces. The people who had been enemies became allies, not because they were forced, but because they were shown respect. News of this success spread across the galaxy. Other worlds began asking for human special forces to help with their problems. And as more stories were told, a new word entered the galactic vocabulary. They called humans soft creatures. The Coalition called them new species. But the people who had actually seen human special forces work called them something else. Whisper walkers, beings who moved without sound, who learned without asking, who conquered without destruction. who understood that the greatest weapon in the universe was not fire or steel. It was patience, it was empathy, it was the simple act of treating people like people. Years later, Elder would tell stories to her about the night the humans came. She would describe the woman who walked into the village alone, speaking in lights. She would explain how the monster in the cellar vanished without a sound. And she would show them the medical kit that still sat in her home, a gift from people who did not have to give anything. Were they warriors? Her would ask, and would smile and shake her head. They were something more, she would say. They were humans, and humans are strange and wonderful creatures. They fight wars, yes, but they also fight for something bigger. They fight for understanding. They fight for peace. And sometimes when they fight for these things, they do not fight at all. They just watch and listen and learn. And when they finally act, they change everything. The children would look at her with wide eyes. Will the Whisper Walkers ever come back? Would look up at the night sky, where human ships sometimes passed among the stars. I hope so, she would say. I truly hope so. And somewhere in the vast darkness of space, 12 soldiers moved toward their next mission. They did not know that stories were being told about them. They did not care about fame or glory. They only cared about the job, watching, learning, understanding, and solving problems that others could not solve. They were human, they were special forces. And the galaxy was only beginning to understand what that truly meant.